the Cthulhu Mythos is comprised of, at least this book of the tales is comprised of like many different stories, and each of them have different storylines. I'm just going to describe the book entirely from the back of the book. So, the story for the complete Cthulhu Mythos tales by H.P. Lovecraft is: the Cthulhu Mythos was H.P. Lovecraft's greatest contribution to supernatural literature, a series of stories that evoked cosmic awe and terror through their accounts of incomprehensibly alien monsters and their horrifying incursions into our world. Complete Cthulhu Mythos collects 23 of Lovecraft's greatest weird tales, including The Call of Cthulhu, The Color Out of Space, The Dunwich Horror, The Shadow over Innsmouth, and The Shadow Out of Time. It also features 6 collaborative revisions through which Lovecraft expanded the scope of his dark mythology. In these stories, monstrous entities traverse the gulfs of time and space, and mankind cowers in fright at the havoc they wreak. The complete Cthulhu Mythos tales is your passport to realms of unimaginable horror. I have to admit, I had no idea what I was getting into when I read this book. For those of you who remember my review of Dark Shadows, the original series, when we got to the storyline of the Leviathan storyline, it was inspired. That storyline was inspired by the Cthulhu Mythos, and that was the first time I ever heard of the Cthulhu Mythos. Was finding that out, and I had no idea it's been around for ages and well celebrated, and the fact that some people believe it's real and actually worship it. So I didn't know what I was getting into. I thought it was interesting. And okay, I did a little research that it was interesting. Found this book randomly at Barnes & Noble and picked it up. And was like, okay, I'm going to start reading it. And I have to admit, it is magnificent. It is very wonderful. Of the 23 stories in this, my favorite are Dagon, The Call of Cthulhu, of course, The Color Out of Space, The Dunwich Horror, The Whisperer in Darkness, At the Mountains of Madness, The Shadow over Innsmouth, The Dreams in the Witch House, The Horror in the Museum, Out of the Aeons, and The Shadow Out of Time. Those stories I particularly liked. The other ones were good as well, very well written and very well imaginative, but I liked those ones in particular because these ones were most well written, more detailed, better storied, and just like I was really drawn into. The creatures themselves are, you can't really describe them to other people. If you do, it's very little vague and very simplistic. You can't really get the detail, the awe, the horror into it. I try to myself when describing especially Cthulhu, but I just can't get it right. So, the best way to describe it is just, as Lovecraft describes it many of the creatures many times, is it's unimaginable. You cannot describe the horror that you see. So, so that's the only way I can really describe these creatures, but they're beautiful. And after every story I read, I went on to Google Images and looked up the story and the creatures described in the stories, and looked at all the beautiful artwork and pictures that fans have drawn over the years, and they're just beautiful and awe-inspiring. I mean, seriously, look up Cthulhu on Google Images. My God, the beautiful pictures, scary, awe-inspiring, and just shocking. It's just beautiful. Look them up. The different storylines are very loosely connected, because H.P. Lovecraft didn't set out to make a grand mythos. He just wrote a story, and he just decided to throw in certain connections to his other works in them. It wasn't intended, and you can kind of tell it wasn't intended, but in the way, even though it was unintended, it perfectly fits. And when reading this, reading the different stories, you could see that mankind is relatively small in the cosmos, and it's completely insignificant when you really think about it. Really insignificant to the grand scheme of the cosmos and to these creatures. These creatures could give a damn about us. We were actually a mistake created. We were a joke, a mistake created by some of the other things. So it's just like, they really just don't care. Even though in the stories we've come to worship these creatures and think of them as gods, there's actually cults in the stories that revolve around these creatures. They still just don't give a damn about us. Will gladly kill us at will. It's just amazing. The cities he creates are very well, like the city of Arkham is very well designed. He gives little detail about like streets and rivers and all that, but it's like you could tell it just seems real with what details he does gives. And the university, Miskatonic University, and the creation of Innsmouth, this town within, that is actually just full of people who look like fishes, and how decrepit it looks. It just seems so real and creepy. And of course, the one thing also that he created that some people was actually thought, even I thought it was created in The Evil Dead, because that's where I first saw it, but the Necronomicon was actually created by H.P. Lovecraft in the Cthulhu Mythos. And I actually, like I said earlier, thought it was created in The Evil Dead, but it turns out not. And amongst other things, he also created the other books, which I can't remember off the top of my head, that are much like the Necronomicon, but talk about different things as well within the old races. Everything's just beautifully well done, beautifully written. However, he does have some problems. Like, for instance, these problems don't really hinder the storyline. It's just like, oh my god, these are so cliche, even for him. The cliche mainly is that the narrator mostly, or just the characters, start out scared and then just end scared. So they end the same way that they began. And also, especially when the stories are written first person, majority of the stories are written in first person. And a story like Dagon, the person at the end of the story, the characters always are writing the story after the events. And at the end of the story of Dagon, the character is writing things going, he feels like the thing is following him. And then the last image is like, oh my god, the creature's hand is on the window. And that's it. It ends right there. Like, did he die? What the heck is going on? It's like the kid. It was like, what happened? And that's something that happens a lot in H.P. Lovecraft. In fact, in this documentary I like called H.P. Lovecraft: The Fear of the Unknown, Neil Gaiman talks about how, I'm kind of paraphrasing because I can't remember exactly what he said, how he talks about, like, the characters are riding up to their death, like, oh my god, I hear them coming, and they're rapping on the door, oh my god, and then they're come, and then ... you're gone in a few ellipses and dots, that's it, you're dead. So that's a common thing of H.P. Lovecraft. Sometimes it's scary, but at the same time it's like, you're doing this over again, what the heck? Well, you're not really giving much terror there, we just know they're coming, but how could you write up until your death? I'd be fucking running. Other things like, one of my favorite stories, The Color Out of Space. Great story, but he drags it out so long. It's like it's a long story and it doesn't need to be. It's like, okay, I'm liking what's going on, but for the crying out loud, just short it up. We need to get to the end. Or At the Mountains of Madness, when they discover, the researchers in Antarctica discover an ancient city that's never been seen before. And it was, all the details were great, but I didn't need to know what every damn hieroglyph on the wall meant. Seriously, we could have skipped a few. Seriously, we didn't need to stop and look at every damn one. It's like, it was great, we got to know the history of the world from the very beginning, but we didn't need to look at every damn one. Seriously, get on with the story, get on with it. Get on to the suspense, the thrilling, the chases, oh my god. Not every damn hieroglyph, it was nuts. But I still love the story. And also, and those are kind of some of the other problems. There's not really other problems, really. There's just a couple things like, just like how weak some of the stories are, because he's kind of a weak writer. Some of them are great, like Call of Cthulhu, oh my god. But sometimes you have to admit, like, particularly towards the end of the stories, you have to admit, okay, this story isn't as good as the other ones, it's kind of weak. No, he's not that great of a writer, but he's very imaginative, which is kind of why he's famous. But he does create very great, very original stories. His writing style. I kind of like his earlier writing styles, to where it was more kind of like Edgar Allan Poe or other Victorian poets who wrote in a very rhythmic pattern. And at first when I read this, I was just like, I know what I'm reading, but at the same time, what the hell am I reading? And I actually, when I finished reading his earlier works in this book, I had to look it up on Wikipedia and read the plot story in Wikipedia just to make sure I read it correctly. And I did. But later on through the story, later on through the books, it gets easier and easier to read, not because I'm understanding it better, but because he's writing more modern and finding his own writing style. Because in his life, he was just like, looking at my works, I see that I'm seeing more Edgar Allan Poe, more of this author, more of this author. Where's my stuff? Where's my work? So he started writing more modern and finding his own pattern, his own rhythm. and it became easier to read and more modern. Although I have to admit, the earlier stuff, the more rhythmic pattern and the poetry of it just fit more with what was going on in the story and the way he was writing. But that's just the author. If he wants to, continue reading more modern, that's fine. That more power to him. I'm not going to say it's wrong. But all in all, I really like these stories. The creatures are very beautiful, very well done. The stories are great. I particularly do recommend this, particularly if particularly if you just like good monster stories, and also if you want to start what Neil Gaiman in the documentary referred to as the Lovecraft game, because all these stories are public domain. He never had copyright, and you can because it's actually called the shared universe. People have added to the Cthulhu Mythos over the years. And even Neil Gaiman did. He's called it the Lovecraft game, where you can write a story, put it in there, and then move on. And also if you want to draw really scary monsters, there you go too. But yeah, basically, Cthulhu Mythos is a great kind of nice, maddening stories to read. In fact, I always read them before going to bed, and I got creepy nightmares. It's great It's great reading. For if you like monsters just to read, or if you like monsters to draw. I mean, even though some of them are undescribable, if you like monsters to draw, hey, this is a perfect book to start off. Perfect. Like I said, the artwork I've seen on Google Images is so beautiful, so striking. So all in all, at the end, I would have to give this 5 stars out of 5. I thoroughly enjoy this, and like I said earlier, I do recommend this for anybody to read. And for those of you who are wondering, yes, it is the name of Cthulhu is pronounced Cthulhu. That is the accepted pronunciation. Some people call it Tulu, Hulu, Cthulhu, Hulu, they've had different pronunciations. H.P. Lovecraft has actually said to a friend one day that the actual way to pronounce it is to actually stick your tongue to the roof of your mouth and cough out the name. So it's more like Cthulhu, Cthulhu, kind of like that. However, even that is wrong, because Lovecraft actually said that our tongues are, us as human beings are not designed to speak this language, to speak the name, because it's an alien language. So it's only able to be pronounced by the creatures, not us. So in the way, any way to say Cthulhu is the right way, but the accepted pronunciation is actually Cthulhu. Same thing with a lot of other names and stuff, because H.P. Lovecraft died before telling us how the hell to say all the different things in the Necronomicon and all these other things. So it's fair game most of the time. However, there is an accepted pronunciation for most of it. Like Dagon, or Dagon as I like to call it, Nyarlathotep, Azathoth, Cthulhu, Yig, and, Azathoth, Azathoth, Yig, Shugnaroth, and there's other ones as well, but those are what I believe to be the accepted ones of some of them. But Cthulhu is the accepted pronunciation for that name. So thank you for watching, and thank you for watching this review of the Cthulhu Mythos. Have a nice day.